The news, the U.S.-Iran standoff putting the Mideast on edge. The Israeli military remains on high alert. This as Iran issues a new threat to the United States, saying that renewed fighting would trigger a wider war extending beyond the Middle East.
So, Dana, you've got this U.S. blockade pushing Iran's economy to its breaking point. That blockade is working. The White House keeping up the pressure as they try to work out a deal, but there are other options that still are on the table.
They come to the table, they're begging to make a deal, because they're begging to make a deal. I hope we don't have to do the war, but we may have to give them another big hit. We may have to give them another big hit. I'm not sure yet.
What I think is that the Iranians want to make a deal. What I think is that the Iranians recognize that a nuclear weapon is the red line for the United States of America, that they've internalized that, but we're not going to know until we're actually putting pen to paper on signing a deal.
And Trey Yingst is following all of this from Tel Aviv. Hi, Trey.
Dana, good morning. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly held a lengthy phone call amid questions about if the war will resume. This comes amid a massive U.S. military buildup across the region, and we're getting some new video that shows U.S. refuelers parked at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport, waiting in case President Trump orders new strikes against the regime. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps released a new threat overnight, warning the United States and Israel against launching another bombing campaign. The IRGC put out a statement saying if the aggression against Iran is repeated, the regional war that was promised will this time go beyond the borders of the region, and you will be dealt crushing blows in places you do not expect, and you will fall into the abyss of defeat and destruction. The threat comes as President Trump says he was just an hour away from deciding to strike Iran earlier this week, and is giving the regime a few additional days to reach a deal.
How close were you to striking Iran?
I was an hour away. We were all set to go. You're talking about yesterday.
Yes.
We were going to be striking it would have been happening right now. Yeah, it was all done. The boats, the ships are all loaded. They're loaded to the brim. And we were all set to start.
As for the possibility of an agreement, reports indicate there are still serious gaps in the positions of the United States and Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about this process yesterday.
So what we've done is tried to be as clear as possible. What are our red lines? What are the things that we're willing to be accommodating on? And what are the things that we absolutely must have? And as the president has said ad nauseum, and I think I've said it a lot too, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Inside Iran, the regime has released new videos showing civilians learning how to use small arms. A variety of similar videos were published in recent days as Iran vows to fight the United States.
Definitely, we will stand against them, the Americans, and won't give up even an inch of our soil. We are even ready to sacrifice our blood, our lives, instead of giving them an inch of our soil. No matter they come from the sea or land, we will stand by our flag.
Overnight, the Israelis held a 5-hour cabinet meeting preparing for the possibility that the war resumes. As the Iranians are talking, the United States and Israel are preparing. Dana?
Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv, thank you.
So with us now, former commander of the USS Cole, Kirk Lippold, is back here. And, sir, thank you for coming back to our program, and good morning to you.
Morning, Bill.
What's the smart money say? Are we going back to war or not?
For 47 years, Bill, Iran has used time to their advantage in order to carry out terrorist attacks around the world. I think it's a matter of not if, but when we are going to unfortunately have to continue combat operations, because the Iranians are still coming to the table. They are refusing to negotiate. They are engaged in information warfare, clearly indicating that the IRGC is unwilling to give up power. So therefore, they're putting the United States in the awkward position, despite diplomacy, that we are going to have to continue this fight in order to bring them further to their knees and make them realize what our red lines are and that they must give in to them.
They play for time, and they also break agreements. So Jack Keane was on with Hannity last night. He has some thoughts as well. Watch here.
We're 6 weeks into what was supposed to be a 2-week deadline to get a deal. The reality is they will work very hard and with major acceleration to do what? To turn that deal around, to reverse it, to cheat on it. And the only way you could ever make a deal that would have a long-term effect would be if we were making a deal with other people, not these people who are running the regime. So there's limitations to the deal itself. And the president's not going to make a bad deal here.
Kurt, even if there was no more war or return to that or hitting them again, Things have changed. The Strait of Hormuz is different, and it's closed, at least right now. It's not, nothing is moving. So is there another way around dealing with that problem?
Dana, right now, there is no way unless we return to combat operations. Clearly, Iran is going to use the Strait of Hormuz and the chokehold that they have on the world's oil supply going out from the Middle East as a leverage point, and we are going to have to engage at some point to do that. General Keane was absolutely correct. When you look at it, it is going to take any deal we have has got to be verified, verified, verified. There is no trust with the Iranians. And at the end of the day, in order to get that strait open, what the last few weeks have given us during this time is not only the ability to kind of give a little bit of crew rest, get some training in, make sure that we can do the maintenance, rearm and refuel. It has also given us the opportunity to build out the target set that is available to us, the Israelis, UAE, and the Saudis, so that if combat operations recommence, it is going to be on a much larger scale. It is going to hit them that much harder. And while the blockade is being effective, the calculus of the strategic deterrence that's going to be enforced to ensure that we bring the Iranian economy to its knees, we have to start hitting some of those key logistics, transportation nodes, as well as their ability to get oil out, because they cannot be refunded by getting the oil to the world, especially China. We're sending a signal in their direction as well.
So the Iranians have a vote in this. They can either give up their nukes and agree to talk about it or not. Here's the Iranian foreign minister with a big claim about an F-35. Watch here. Okay, I'll read it. Okay. Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Months after initiation of war on Iran, U.S. Congress acknowledges loss of dozens of aircraft worth billions. Our powerful armed forces are confirmed as first to strike down a touted F-35. With lessons learned and knowledge we gain, return to war will feature many more surprises. That is not true. No evidence that an F-35 was even came close to being down there. However, if we go back to military action, the Iranians do what then? How do they respond? How would you expect them to respond?
I think they're going to respond with the limited capacity that they have available. They are probably going to take what they have for cruise missile batteries and others, begin to aim at ships throughout the Gulf. They're also going to continue to hit some of the strategic oil facilities in all of the Gulf countries, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, UAE. They're going to try and strike back at those facilities. And I think the United States has worked very well with our partners throughout the Middle East to ensure that we can protect those facilities. But at the end of the day, Iran is essentially going to wage guerrilla warfare with their ballistic missile and their cruise missiles and drones throughout the area, and we're going to have to learn very quickly and adapt. Where are they firing them from, and what do we have to do to take down that capability? Because otherwise, this campaign could go on, but at the end of the day, Vice President Vance was correct. We cannot negotiate with the people that are in power right now. We need to get some people who are going to be reasonable. Hopefully, we can create that exodus of the leadership of the IRGC and what is left of the mullahs. Let them get out of the country, whether they go to Russia, China, or elsewhere. It doesn't matter. They need to be removed from power so that we can have a fruitful discussion that will allow us to achieve some of the strategic objectives with no nuclear weapons.
Kirk Lippold, thank you so much for being on today with us.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Bill.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.